And motion 13, right? 12.2, yeah. Sorry. Independent external review of hate symbols and hate crimes. This motion has been moved by Member Menendez and seconded by Member Kretsch. Member Menendez, please introduce your motion, and then we will move in discussion of the matter.
Thank you so much, and through you, Chair, I'm now going to shuffle these papers trying to find the motion here. So this is a motion for an independent external review of hate symbols and hate groups. Whereas public reporting by the CBC and other media has raised serious concerns about hate symbols and hate groups in communities most often targeted by hate, including Black, Indigenous, racialized, Muslim, Jewish, and 2S LGBTQIA+ communities in Hamilton. Whereas these communities have called for stronger oversight and accountability measures when allegations of bias, racism, and discrimination involve members of the service, whereas public trust in policing and the integrity of the service require that allegations of any association with hate groups or hate symbols linked to any member of the service must be addressed with the highest degree of accountability, transparency, independence, and urgency, whereas it's important to balance the need to provide confidentiality around complaints related to individual members of the service while still providing the public with accountability regarding the service itself, whereas the board commissioned an independent external review into the incidents surrounding Pride 2019, which evaluated not only the incident itself, but recommended broader systemic actions and analyses, and whereas the Epstein report emphasized the role of police service boards in ensuring timely communication from police service regarding matters that potentially impact on its reputation or its relationship with diverse communities. Therefore, be it resolved that the Hamilton Police Service Board commission an independent external review of the service with respect to hate symbols and hate groups by an appropriately qualified external reviewer with demonstrated expertise in anti-racism, hate symbols, hate groups, and policing oversight. The external review must include, but is not limited to, a review and analysis of any public policies and procedures for monitoring the conduct of officers it is determined to be racist, anti-immigrant, or anti-government, including the use of hate symbols, hate-related, and connections to any groups that promote racist, anti-immigrant, anti-government ideologies or hate, and recommendations for improved oversight, accountability, and systemic changes to the services related policies, and that the external review be completed within 180 days of the appointment of the independent reviewer.
Thank you for that. And if it's, well, I'm going to I have a couple questions because I need some clarity. It's a lot to process, right?
I believe it, if we have a seconder.
We have a seconder.
Yeah, I'll be very brief.
Okay,
Just wanted to thank the board's legal counsel for her advice. This is one of those things that you can't just bring forward in a vacuum or can't bring forward without getting legal advice, but because there are sometimes outstanding matters that relate to these things and about individuals or investigations that are going on. So really glad she was able to help us simplify this and make it a board policy type of motion. Just want to thank her for that. That's all.
Great, thank you, Member Menendez.
As the mover of this motion, may I make a statement about this motion, and I hope maybe it may answer some questions or uncertainties my colleagues may have about it. And really this is, regarding how the service monitors officers whose conduct may be racist, anti-immigrant, or anti-government, or who may have associations with organizations who promote hate or anti-government ideologies. As I've said over the past 6 months, the fact that the Hamilton Police and Hamilton itself has made Canadian national news headlines regarding alleged operations of hate and white supremacist groups, it's been concerning. And I think all of us as Hamiltonians feel that hurt. This is not what our city's about, nor is it what our service is about. Member Kretsch and I highlighted our concerns about rising hate in Hamilton and the mission of these national public reports from the annual hate crimes report back in when it was presented to the board in June 2025. And while it has been noting that, there is an ongoing investigation into the conduct of officers that has yet to be concluded, that's not what this motion is about, and I want to clarify that, right? This is about the service as a whole. This is not about an investigation that we have no business in intervening in or talking about without those results, right? So rather, this motion looks at the bigger picture, right, of how this board and this service is currently addressing this rising concern, how we as a board and as a service can improve. When there were public concerns that raised questions about the trust in public, places in police service, it must be a top priority for this board to address them appropriately and in a manner that increases public trust in policing. I draw on Sir Robert Peel's words here, right? The power of the police to fulfill their functions and duties is dependent on public approval and on their ability to secure and maintain public trust. Maintaining public trust in policing is one of our primary duties as a civilian oversight body, understanding current processes and potential gaps, looking for ways we can improve the current policies and procedures that govern this service. This is a key part of our mandate. This is exactly what the Hamilton Police Service Board did in response to Pride 2019, and we stress that this can and it must be done again. This is not about passing any kind of judgment or coming to any kind of conclusion about what is or what is not being done by our service. This is about our commitment to transparency and responding to community needs. It's about living and breathing the value many of us on this board have stated at this table before. We must also strive and always strive to do better and be better. An investment in our collective future, an investment in continuous quality improvement, and side note, an investment as we plan for the upcoming year and we set our strategic plan for the service as a whole.
Thank you. So for my own clarification, I've read the motion. I have a couple questions for you because you've been, you provided some detail. What is, with this motion, what is your objective to come out of this? What are you hoping to obtain? Like what's the goal that will make us better?
Well, I think that's jumping to some conclusions about what we think the review is going to come, or what conclusions are going to come from a review. And I want to be cautious about not jumping to any, potential, prejudice conclusions about what may or may not happen. What I see as really important for it as an oversight body, and what the Police Service Board does, it sets priorities, it ensures that there are the correct policies and procedures in place for us to do our jobs, right? And for us to be that governing and oversight body, for us to ensure that the public trusts the processes that we are carrying out. And so a review of what the current processes and policies are that are currently in place in this board, how they're being implemented and operationalized. Are they having the effect that we are intending? Are there any gaps? Are there any things that we need to be ensuring as we look to the future? Those are some of the things that I imagine would come out of a review. And potentially, Member Kretsch, who has a little bit more of that background about what happened after Pride 2019, for, all of us who have been, there's been a lot of movement on this board, and a number of us, are not present for, other external reviews. But that's generally what has happened for other external reviews. That's generally, as we see some of the recommendations or the announcements of changes that have been made to police service boards for recommendations for other reviews that I've commented on earlier in this board meeting. Does that clarify anything for you, Chair?
I'm not sure, but I do have a follow-up question. Based on your motion, and thank you for those comments because they kind of added to my question, are you familiar with the procedures and policies in place now that the service implement? Like, you want them improved, so I assume that you've probably taken a look at them and see where improvements could be. Remember, Kretsch, you don't seem to agree, but that's...
Yeah, my confusion is just that, I don't know, you're cross-examining the motion. If you have questions for staff, ask them. I think what the point of this whole thing is to put this to a review, to have people who do an external independent review do that work, right? So yeah, of course, being aware of the policies is one thing, but how do they measure against other policies? Are they doing the thing they're supposed to do? That's what the point of the whole review is to have someone come in who is an expert in hate groups and these kinds of things, to look at this from that perspective and make sure our policies meet the objectives they're meant to meet, which I think is a reasonable thing to do in light of the circumstances. So,
Member Kretsch, I'm not trying to cross-examine anybody. I'm trying to understand where Member Menendez's concern and the motion is coming from. I would think if you want an independent review of how the service is implementing these things, there must be some areas that you're concerned with. That's my only question. So you don't have to answer it. That's my comment. How's that? Not a cross-examination, a comment that I was curious of that. Is there any other discussion on this matter? Member Spatafora?
Thank you, Chair. And I think I'm going to have two questions. So if you can allow me to say the second one after the first one. So I'm new to obviously this board. I think this is my second meeting. And I'm assuming we do a lot of the things that are in this motion. So the first thing I want to do is ask the chief, and I apologize to everybody here that knows everything we do on these items, but if I can have an overview from the chief on what we're doing in these regards that are talked about in this motion. Are we doing everything, or what are we doing? Just a brief overview on the oversight we currently have in place, if that's okay through you, Chair.
Of course. Chief.
Thank you, Member Spatafor, and through the chair. I'm going to do much like you. I'm going to pause what we did and what our policies and procedures afford us to do. And I want to take the time to understand that I too have circled accountability, transparency, independence, urgency, confidentiality, and timely communication. This board is, as you'd said, and Member Menendez, thank you for acknowledging, this was something we dealt with publicly as soon as we had that opportunity to do it, up to and including suspending the member. Specific to the oversight, I'm going to ask if Superintendent Mason can speak to what right now is the oversight tools that are available to this board in order to answer that question.
Thank you, Chief, and through you, Chair. So there are 3 different independent civilian-run oversight agencies responsible for different aspects of policing in the province of Ontario. There's the Law Enforcement Complaints Agency, commonly known as LECA, the Special Investigations Unit, or the SIU, and the Inspectorate of Policing. So there was a number of changes made to the Community Safety and Policing Act in response to a number of calls by community for oversight and accountability. So the CSPA creates a number of additional oversight body of the Inspectorate of Policing. It did things like remove the ability of the chief to appoint a hearing officer in cases of misconduct. So hearing officers are no longer appointed by the chief. They must be appointed independently by the Arbitration and Adjudication Commission. It also created some new misconduct offenses that address human rights and the charter and interactions with the public, mandated new training for officers that includes human rights, systemic racism, rights and cultures of First Nations, Inuit, Métis people, mental health. When we have individual officer misconduct issues, those are handled by the LECA. If there are service policy related concerns, those are handled through the IOP. And those agencies are completely independent of the police. They have jurisdictional and legislative oversight over all police services in Ontario, including ours. We have a number of policies that are very stringent when it comes to member misconduct, and that includes both public complaints that are made through the LECA, as well as internal complaints that are brought forward by our supervisors very often. The only other piece I'd add is all of our new members, they must go through a stringent background screening process before they come into the service, and that includes a review of all of their activity, including all of their social media activity.
Thank you for that information. The next thing I want to comment on, and I know some of the comments that were made about, some of the incidents that are happening in Hamilton around discrimination and hate. And I don't know that that's a Hamilton conversation. I think that's a Canada-wide, international conversation. This is not a specific thing that's only happening here. And I think, at least for me, in every profession, you're going to have a few that make mistakes or need to be held accountable. No different in not just from policing, in any profession. I find it as if our service, this motion tells me our service is not doing the job that it should be doing. That's what I'm getting out of this motion. I'm getting as if we don't have policies in place, transparency, accountability, and that there's these sorts of incidents happening in our city. And my impression is like, well, the police is not good at this. They don't know how to handle it. They don't have the oversight in place. That's the impression I'm getting from this motion. And supporting this motion for me is if I'm agreeing to that. It's if I'm agreeing, sitting here saying that our service is poor in the job that it does in regards to transparency, accountability, oversight, even though there's oversight committees that aren't even, they're provincially, they're not even ours. So I mean, there's oversight there. It's a bad taste for me. I think we do a good job. Are we going to be perfect? Never. I don't think there's a service across this country that's ever going to be perfect, not only in this situation, but in any. Yeah, do we have a hate problem across this country? Absolutely. I would say it's worldwide, but it's not just here. And I think this circles our service saying that we're not doing a very good job of it and we need to review it because we need to improve it. We're always going to need to improve it. But this, to me, bringing an independent reviewer tells me that the belief in our service isn't there. I have the belief in the chief leadership and every member here that we're going to try our best to be as good as we possibly can. There's going to be some that are going to make us look bad. We deal with it, just like every other profession. I'm not going to be able to support this motion. If there's things that come forward that are systematic, that this service needs it, because it's across the board, it's happening every single day, maybe at that point I look at it, but right now I can't support this motion as it's written. Thank you.
Member Spatafora, what's in this? Member Padula, please. Or Member Padula.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I have 3 questions for the chief. I'll try and keep them succinct. So the first one is, and I understand the way that this motion was framed, given that there might be some sensitivities, but I've been meaning to ask you this for a long time, and I hope that you can answer the question, if not directly about a specific incident, then maybe in general. And it's so, how are allegations handled, specifically to what's being referenced here with a news article in the past? And how is that dealt with? And if specifics can't be given, then in general, how are things handled within the Hamilton Police Service? It's been burning at me for a while.
Thank you, Member Padula, and through the chair. Thank you for giving me the caution, but I will speak specifically to how this was born and why we're talking about it. So I apologize, bear with me, because I will specifically talk about the sequence of events that have led to concerns that we've heard for months now. We received a complaint in December 2024 about a Diagolon sticker posted on a vehicle near one of our stations. When we received the complaint, notification was made to the Law Enforcement Complaints Agency, LECA. Thank you, Superintendent Mason, for explaining their roles and responsibilities. It's our information that the agency determined it did not rise to the level of public interest to self-initiate an investigation into the matter. We also went to another governing body, the Inspector General, and they also declined to investigate. As such, we dealt with it as an internal investigation. At the time, the service was not aware of the social activity that we then were made aware of in the fall of 2025. As soon as we learned from the CBC about the concerning social media post of the same member, he was suspended and the matter was referred to another police service. So again, accountability, transparency, independence of not us through a biased lens, we gave it to another police agency. I will tell you the investigation has since concluded and the matter has been dealt with under the CSPA. It's an employee matter. The matter has been dealt with. As far as timely communication, the moment our organization became aware of the allegation from CBC, and we welcome those allegations because we need then to respond. On the 11th of August, 2025, and I'll read it, the Hamilton Police suspend member after disturbing social media posts. As the whereas, timely communication. Hamilton Police has suspended a 23 member following the discovery of troubling social media posts containing prejudicial content. The posts were first brought to the service's attention by a media outlet. Upon learning of these allegations, the member was suspended with pay and an internal investigation was immediately initiated. The Hamilton Police Service holds all members to the highest standards of professionalism, conduct, impartiality. Any expression of views or support for groups that promote hate or discrimination is contrary to the values of our organization and our duty to serve everyone in our community. If the investigation determines that the member's conduct breached Hamilton Police Service's standard, appropriate disciplinary action will be taken. Hamilton Police will not provide further comment while this matter is investigated. Before that ink was dry, I also had internal communication, which we call must-read, which I shared with the board, giving very clear direction. I followed up a couple days later with a second, more, I guess, strident view on my position as chief of the police. With respect to what we have, and this is not limited to, but when we look at our policies, and I don't think I've ever been shy. If any member of the board wants to sit in our office, or I'll come to you, I will share line by line and have you review as Board of Governors our policies that are in place. With respect to the purview of this particular motion, code of conduct and duty to report, discipline, police officers, internet use, corporate email and e-communications, social media, equal opportunity, anti-racism, anti-discrimination, hate bias crimes and hate propaganda, supervision, internal support networks, and our police liaison team, which is the outward facing that works with our communities, that we have to stand alongside shoulder to shoulder and understanding the value of that trust that we are entrusted every day. So we have taken this matter seriously. With respect to what I've circled, and I'll repeat them, accountability, we have. Transparency, we have. Independence, thank you, Superintendent Mason. Urgency, we demonstrated that. Confidentialities, we are guided. We have several documents that speak to what we are expected to do. We have to respect Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, MFIPA. We have to also deal with what is the Community Safety and Policing Act, specifically Section 44(2)B, Section 145. We adhere to legislation, but more importantly, we have absolutely underlined the importance of this with policies and procedures. Again, Chair, I will make these available to anyone as well as in camera or at any other opportunity. I will share our investigations to date.
Thank you, Chief. Member
Yes, just had two more questions. So I know there was a reference to an independent external review surrounding the Pride 2019. Do we know what the cost was on the independent review? I'm assuming that there's going to be some similarities between that and this if it was to move forward.
Thank you very much, Member Padula, and through the chair. I have borne the weight and breadth of the Bergen report. As I reported to this board, and we continue to report to the board, the status of the 38 recommendations. I'd be remiss if I did not thank Deputy Diodati for his oversight on making sure that we could be efficient in those results. The actual recommendations cost just shy of $600,000, but they also were meaningful. And they were supportive in being able to give us that course and the charting of the course. What is outstanding, and right now we've only had the initial inauguration of being able to look at a 2S and LGBTQIA advisory panel. And we've been advised, and perhaps Inspector Rashford can acknowledge, I believe in early March, we've already got consensus for the second meeting to able then finally conclude all 38 recommendations of that Bergman report. Is that correct, Inspector?
And through you, Chair, that meeting is arranged for March the 11th.
Thank you.
Okay, final question then. I have noted in multiple meetings that there seems to be an increase or a rise in hate crimes, hate rhetoric throughout Hamilton. To Member Spatafor's point, it seems consistent across Canada and globally there seems to be an increase. I guess the two questions I have is, just again, going back to my own experience, when you create the opportunity for reporting, you will see sort of a rapid rise potentially in the number of incidents for whatever we're reporting on. So has any of the reporting structure for hate crimes or hate rhetoric changed recently to allow for more easily accessible to the public to report on these things? So I'm just wondering if there's any correlation there. And then secondary to that, like irregardless, it seems like there is an increase. And so what are we doing? I know that there's been reports and we've talked about it before, but I just want to see, if anything's changed within the last probably 3 or 4 months from when we had the internal delegation on hate crimes. And if there's anything we're doing that's proactive to address some of these challenges that we're seeing in Hamilton and across Canada.
Thank you very much, Member Padula, and through the chair. If I may, for a moment, as a preamble, as you gave us that overview of the question, I appreciate the question. Public trust and understanding the significance of Sir Robert Peel, as Member Menendez spoke about. If we don't have the public trust and the support of our community, we can't do our job. And I want to thank this community for giving us that trust. And whether it's because we have demonstrated an availability and a transparency and accountability during our command, and I've been so well served by these 2 deputies and those senior officers in this room. As such, we've been able to get a community advisory panel in place that gets us that ability to have an actual voice and to understand the impact of our interactions. That has given us the opportunity to be able to better articulate our use of force and our race and identity-based data. Race and identity-based data was born in a petri dish in Peel, and it was a conversation when they said and took great publicity in talking about a relationship with the Ontario Human Rights Commission. And they started talking about that. Hamilton Police is one of the only organizations in the province of Ontario that has in fact been able to realize an effective race and identity-based data where we have the ability to work with an independent community group to be able to look at the interactions line by interactions to interpret that. I'm very confident as we get into this mid-year session of this board, and congratulations to the chair and the vice chair and those who are around the table. I'm confident that as we approach those conversations in use of force this year, you will start hearing the voice of that community about them having an impact of what our interactions look like. That's a positive place to be. The other one that I'm very excited about and very, very encouraged by the leadership of Inspector Rashford, and I'll turn to her now to speak more specifically to your question, is about what are we doing and what is happening with hate and what are we doing with our hate crime case review team, Inspector Rashford.
Thank you, Chief, and through you, Chair. And Member Padula, I can tell you that we have seen the numbers rise, and that can be attributed to a number of things, geopolitically, but also we know that we've made it a little bit easier for our community to make reports to us. We've got an online reporting system that allows them to do that. And when we speak to, from a community or from an investigative lens as to what we're doing for our hate reported incidents, once they're reported in, all of them are forwarded to our hate crime unit. They're reviewed and to make sure that all investigative steps have been taken, and then they're classified appropriately. The team makes sure that they contact every victim that has put in a report to offer supports, which is facilitated through our victim services unit. And this year we've also had partnership with the YMCA through a grant that they got. And then we work with our provincial and federal partners to share intelligence regarding hate crimes and extremism groups. Speaking to our hate crime case review team, this was a consultation with the community. We formed a team of 14 community representatives, which works with 3 civilian and 3 sworn members from our team. They're actually meeting tonight. They will be reviewing 124 cases ranging from 2018 to 2023. They look at those to help us with future training and policy changes, has been mentioned all the way through this motion. The team is coming to a conclusion at the end of next year, and at the end of their term, they will provide us with formal recommendations that will help guide us to make sure that we're providing better quality service to members that report hate incidents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Inspector, and I will add, and it was warm to hear from Inspector Menendez, who made reference to the agility of the London Police Service and how they have structured their organizational chart, or the org chart as we call it in the business. As a chief of this service, I structured all hate crime, all community responses, all community reviews to report directly to the chief's office. I've expanded the role of our hate crime unit. Inspector Rashford oversees that on top of many other responsibilities. I have a staff sergeant in hate crime. I have 2 detective constables in hate crime. I also have another officer that is in there to deal with the occurrences. I take this very seriously. They report directly to me. And so thank you for the question, and we look forward to any other questions from the board.
Through you, Chair. I'd just like to say, as a new member myself, I could not support this motion as well. I agree with many points that Board Member Spatafora brought up. I think we have one of the best leadership groups here that any community could ask for. I think it's in everybody's best interest that hate and issues similar are taken care of immediately, and I think that's been demonstrated today just from the information that we've just been given. But I don't think crime or hate crimes any worse here than is in any other city in Canada. I think it's a countrywide situation. I think we are newly starting to take, get statistics put together, so it is looking bad, and I'm sure there's lots of bad situations. But for me personally, I think our leadership here is doing a fine job, and obviously, like Board Member Spatafora mentioned, there's always room for improvement. But I do say, though, that, from my limited time here at the board, there seems to be kind of a constant sort of negative sort of overflow about things. And I just find that instead of supporting, our police service, and that's why we're here. We're here for our community, and I think we need to support our police service. I'm more in tune with looking at the positives versus always the negatives. If something needs to be addressed, obviously it needs to be addressed. But I think demonstrated again today just by our leadership and the information that they've provided us on this topic, I don't think that there's a leadership anywhere, managing a police service that's doing a better job than right here in Hamilton. So I can't support the motion, and I think that we need to definitely, look for the best of what we have, and I think we've got it.
I apologize, Member Pauls. She was up and so we'll do the order. Go ahead.
Thank you. And no need to apologize. I just want to tell my member here that it's not that the reason why I will not support it, not because it's not a good policy, it is good, but because we already have those policies. When I heard Inspector Mason say we have 3 independent aspects. We have LECA, SIU, IOP. So when I heard that, we already have that. And also, Inspector Mason says, and I know that when they hire someone, or men and women, they go through screening. And sometimes I think it takes over a year before they hire a police officer. So the service already has these policies and procedures. And I'm so glad that your chief talked about it, that he has all protocols to make sure the conduct of any officers are the highest standard. Now, of course, some might fall along the sideway, but he has the protocols. They have the policies. So to put this on, and when I read this, I read it again and I said, it's kind of sad in a way, because we're telling the public we want to do this because we might have officers. It says, a review analysis of any public policy and procedure for monitoring the conduct of police officers is or has been determined to be racist, anti-immigrant, anti-government, including the use of hate symbol, hate-related, connection to any group to promote racist, anti-immigrant, anti-government ideology or hate. So by putting even that there, I just can't support it. I cannot support it because our chief, our deputy chief, our whole system, they have those policies. So for that, member Mendes, I cannot support it. But I want the public to be sure we have these policies. And if you want to know what they are, you go and visit the chief. I've been there a few times. You know, when I have a question, I go to the deputy chiefs, you know, to the inspectors. I learn more. So that is the reason why I can't support it. If any member of the public reads that, oh, that's a good motion, well, of course we want to make sure there's no one in our police service that have racism or anti-immigrants and all. Of course we do, of course. But it's the way it's written, and not only that, it's because we already have these policies. So for that, I cannot support it. Thank you.
Member Menendez.
Just to clarify here, and I see that, you know, and I think it's been referred to by a number of my colleagues about fears that when I ask questions at this board that is interpreted as having a negative view of all of our service members here. I appreciate all the work that everyone here does. I take my role in governance very seriously when we're talking about reviewing the policies that exist that govern the police service, that's actually a reflection of us as a board rather than our service members. When we're talking about an external civilian review, this is about how we as a board, as a governing body, can improve. Similar to why and how the Ottawa Police Services and London Police Services have ordered audits and reviews of their police structures, and their leadership structures, doesn't mean that they didn't have a leadership structure. They're actually looking for ways that they could improve. I think we should be cautious about stating that if we examine ways for us to do better, then that means that we're not the best. I think it'd be odd for us as a board to already state that we have excellent policies and procedures in place and refuse to look for ways that we can do better. I think given the 30, I believe you said there's 38 recommendations from Pride 2019 that, to my knowledge, they were all useful, or were there a number of those recommendations you said that was a waste of money, we shouldn't do that, we shouldn't try to improve? I think that there are ways that we can improve and that we should be looking to improve. I appreciate Member Pauls for recognizing that the most important part of this motion are the therefore clauses. I know that a number of my colleagues are very concerned with the whereas clauses. That was simply painting the context and the picture for why this motion has come forward. The multiple delegations that we have received regarding this issue as well from members of the community also points to the growing context. The fact that, you know, like when the CBC and National pointed to the emergence and the proliferation of active groups in Hamilton, they actually didn't say this was active groups equally noted across all of Canada. Actually, it was a Hamilton issue. So I think we actually do need to recognize that there's something local at least going on, or something that's been reported in the public, specifically referring to Hamilton, that requires us to address how that influences public trust in this institution. And I will agree of the general assumptions that have been made by about me on this board, and my views of policing, that actually, of course, influences any kind of policy review that I would conduct. This is why we're asking for an independent civilian review, right? This is about how we maintain public trust in policing by ensuring the public that we are, in an unbiased fashion, looking to do better and be better. And so just wanting to clarify some of that context and the concerns raised at this board. And I hope that, as a board, we will continue to seek to do better instead of assuming that any discussions of getting better means that we are not supporting our police services. Because I think as a board, and specifically speaking to my colleagues, Member St. Jean's comments, I think as a board, talking about how we can do better is a fundamental role for us. And does not mean that we do not appreciate the work of everyone in our police service. So just clarifying some of the context.
Thank you, Member Kretsch.
Dramatic entrance. I think we shouldn't forget that Hamilton was declared the hate capital of Canada recently. In recent years, and while we weren't #1 in subsequent years, we remained in the top. That's not something I'm making up. That's something that was independently arrived at, and many people agreed that it was a concern. And there were many statistics used, and it wasn't just about hate crimes. It was about many different things that they used to determine that we were the hate capital of Canada. So we can keep saying it's a problem across Canada, it's a problem across the world. I could say that about thousands of different things. I'm talking about the city of Hamilton, and there is a problem with hate in this city. So I talk to lots of communities who face that hate on a regular basis, and they talk about that issue that they're facing as well. So this is coming from the community to a certain extent. I think we got to refocus on this is coming from the community. And what we're seeing and hearing is a simple gap that people are identifying, I think. They're saying, we're concerned, and since the chief's brought the details up, I'll speak to them. We are concerned that 8 months went by without this being dealt with in a different manner. And we referred it to LECA, who said, this isn't a concern for us. Meanwhile, right, the group that we're talking about was described during a national committee, a federal committee, on a professor for public safety at Seneca College, Mubin Sheikh, described these folks as, firstly, they were described by the committee as an ideologically motivated violent extremism group. And this was the testimony from the professor. It's made up of former members of the Canadian Forces, individuals with real combat training, with real capabilities, and who have grown increasingly radicalized, especially because of COVID. These are people with weapons. There is an alleged connection between this group and the group that was arrested at the Coots border crossing, who were ready to engage police in a firefight in a shootout. These are the kinds of groups that I consider to be a real and significant threat to Canadian public safety at large. So experts, the federal government testimony, and it could go on all day and night with this. This is not some light activity, someone putting a sticker on their vehicle, and we shouldn't take it seriously. Meanwhile, it didn't get investigated for 8 months. The public has a right to say that they're concerned about that. The public has a right to say that when they see that happening, they think there's a gap. And one way to assure that we deal with this is obviously by asking experts who do this work, not LECA, who do not have experts who do this work on their board, do not have experts who do this work, making decisions on a day-to-day basis about these complaints, but experts. So having those people come forward, do an independent review, look at our policies and determine, and maybe they'll come back and they'll say, these are great, love them. Why are we afraid to hear what they have to say? If our policies can withstand any scrutiny, put them up to some scrutiny, go for it. There's no problem doing that. I think it's important that we have experts do this work. And we're beginning to do some of this work at the Hamilton Police Service, I know that. And the chief's talked about some of the work we're beginning to do. I don't think Hamiltons can wait. Hamiltons can wait. They're looking at these situations that occur. They're afraid for their physical and emotional safety. They're worried about what's happening. And they have every right to be worried. So that's why this is here, and that's why I think it needs to be taken seriously. People can vote how they want. I'm never here to criticize. You vote how you want, vote your conscience. I'm just saying to you that I don't think we can take this lightly or just say, well, we have some policies here, we think it's working, when the public is saying that they're very concerned. The same thing happened at Pride. The public said they were very concerned, and this board took that concern seriously. And the people who bore the weight of that, actually, I'll say, to be clear, people who bore the weight and depth of that were the people in the queer community. Trans people, queer people, gay people in the queer community bore the weight of that incident. And that's who we're responsible to in these situations, is the community. So I don't understand how people can vote against this. From either way you look at it, you have complete and utter confidence in the policies and they can stand up to any discussion by an independent reviewer, put them to the test. But if you see that the community has legitimate reason for being concerned, and we think we ought to review this to ensure that they feel safe, then put it to the test. So I don't understand how people are voting against this. This is not about confidence in the police and our policies. This is about community safety. Thank you.
Are there any other member Spatafora?
I'm just looking for clarification because I just heard that this specific incident that the chief referenced, it didn't get investigated for 8 months. Can I get clarity on that? This incident, I'm assuming we're talking about the sticker that was found on the vehicle. I'm assuming that's what we're talking about. Did not get investigated for 8 months. Someone could clarify that?
Member Spatafora, thank you for your question and through the chair. I will ask Superintendent Mason to help me, but there are two incidences. The first was an awareness in December of 2024 of a diagolon sticker. And because of the time of the year, it was in the Christmas seasons, LECA had not got it until early January. And they then, what is the process? And again, Superintendent Mason can speak to it. We wait for them. We bring that concern to LECA, the provincial oversight body. And then when they returned that they weren't going to investigate it, when the Inspector General wasn't going to take it over, we investigated it. So that was done in a very short time once we got it, and the superintendent can speak to that. In August, when the CBC made a note, and it was the 11th of August, I suspended the member, and we then started the investigation of the intake, and that then went to an outside agency, an outside police service, and a month ago, we received the outcome to that. It's not 8 months. If we're talking about diagolon, the superintendent can talk to you about that one, and if you're talking about the other one, that was from August until December. But Superintendent Mason, if you need to clean up on aisle 5, please assist it.
Yeah, we're talking about two separate incidents. Both of them were immediately sent for investigation the moment we became aware of them. One went to LECA. We have to wait for LECA's response to determine whether they're going to conduct it themselves or send it back to us. They made a determination that they were going to send it back to us for our own investigation, which was completed well within the timelines that are required in the legislation. The second incident with regards to the social media post, as soon as we became aware of that, the chief suspended the member. It was investigated right away. And it was sent out to an independent police service to conduct that investigation.
I appreciate the clarity on that. Again, it sounds to me that when we send it off to LECA, we wait for LECA to respond. And then once they make their determination on what they're going to do with the case, then we would start our case. We're not going to start it or start the investigation while we're waiting for a response from LECA, because that wouldn't, I guess, make a lot of sense.
We're actually prohibited from beginning the investigation until LECA responds to us. Generally, we hear back from LECA within a week to 10 days.
But once you submit that complaint to them, you stand down until you get an answer back.
That is correct, sir.
Thank you.
For a point of clarification, in August the 11th, when I was made aware by a CBC article, a reporter who brought it to our attention, I suspended the member immediately. I did not wait for direction from legislation or from a government body. I took responsibilities for that action of that member. I suspended that member that instant.
That's it for me, Chair. Thank you.
Member Menendez.
And just to clarify, and I understand there may be a difference between what has been reported in the public sphere, but not through official channels respecting, employment rights at this board. Now my understanding from multiple sources is that the December 2024 incident regarding the sticker ended up being the same, relating to the same service member who was later suspended in August of 2025, correct me if I'm wrong, and that in addition, Superintendent May, really appreciate your description of the social media screening that happens for new service members. It was quite interesting to put that into context with the CBC article about how that member had been posting racist, anti-immigrant rhetoric for quite a number of years on their social media. And my understanding is that social media screening only happens, when we're screening folks to come into the service, but nothing else continues unless, again, we have lengthy community members who are raising concerns or filing complaints. Anything that I was wrong in that quick summary?
Thank you very much, Member Menendez, and through the chair. I will respect the language of Section 145 of the CSPA. Thank you.
Member Kretsch.
Thanks. I think the thing I was trying to highlight, to be clear, is that there was an ability to act in the same quick and efficient manner in August as there was in December of 2024. There was an ability to take that same approach and treat it with the same seriousness. I read out some comments about that group and the sticker on the back of the person's car and what that implies, and I think it should be taken seriously. I think it should have been taken as seriously as it was taken 8 months later. And that's where the gap lies. And so I'll put it to you this way, and this is what I hear from people in the community. We've heard this in the articles that have been written. It's been put out there. What people said was, an issue with an individual with respect to this specific matter, the one the chief raised earlier, was given to the police, and because an action wasn't taken immediately, that person, who was part of a group that has the views I read out earlier, was allowed to remain in their position unsuspended for 8 more months. If people don't think the public should be concerned about that, or people who are in groups that are being targeted by these folks don't have a right to be concerned about that, I don't get it. There was an 8-month gap in time where that person remained non-suspended when there was an opportunity for that to be. That is a policy gap. That is what an independent review can look at. So I don't understand why people think it's okay for people to have that kind of fear in the community, knowing that that's happening. And now that it's been made public, we all can see it plainly and clearly. So I think we should take action to address it. That's the board's role.
Is there any further discussion on the matter?
Yeah, I just, I'm sitting here, and when you said that, Councillor Kretsch, I respect you, and you're probably smarter than me, but I want to tell you something. When you said that Hamilton is the capital hate of the city, when you said that, and then we have a motion here to look at our officers, to look at what they're doing, to have policy, which we do have, and the chief addressed it. We do have those 3 independent, the LECA. It takes time, I know. I've been investigated, you have been invested, and it takes a long time. But I want to tell you, our chief did his job. And also, when you say the city's full of hate, and we want to make sure every police officer, after they've served up for so long, and after it takes years to become a police officer, I just find a kind of a distrust you're putting on our service. You're putting a distrust. This policy, when I read this motion, it's putting like my people want to know about where the hate's coming from. And literally, it states that we have to make sure every police, and we do want to make sure. Now, how many cases has there been? One case, the CBC reported, and all of a sudden there's hate in our service, and I just cannot support it. It's the intent to tell the public we're going to make sure they're responsible, but they are. We do have 3 independent. We have LECA, SIU, IOP. The chief has put a community panel for race and identity data. He has done more probably than any other chiefs. So I want to thank the chief for doing that. But I just want to be careful what we say. Our words matter. Hamilton is capital of hate, and now let's put this motion in. I just don't get it. Thank you. I'm not going to vote for it.
Okay.
If I could just conclude by saying I agree totally. I mean, it's just so disturbing. I mean, I'd like to see these statistics where we're the capital of hate. I mean, and all these people that are feeling threatened for their lives with that officer being out free for 8 months, if that was the case, which it's been proven today right from leadership that it's not, I'd like to know who all these people are that are fearing for their lives. Because I deal with a lot of people on a daily basis as well through my business, and I'm not hearing people every day concerned that, you know, they're fearing for their lives because of this Hamilton being the hate capital. So I agree, and I also feel too that there seems to be a little bit of a conflict. I mean, I know that, you know, Board Member Kretsch is obviously in the Police Services Board. He's also a councilman in Hamilton. I'm not really sure what the agenda is here, but it just feels a bit concerning to me that there's just so much negativity, so much, you know, negativity that, again, it just feels a bit concerning for me personally.
Member Kretsch.
Oof. I'll do my best to respond to some of this. Generally speaking, I'm not the one using the language of trust. I'm not the one talking about it. The motion's there in black and white. Read it for yourself. If you want to imply motivations that are there that aren't written, go ahead, but don't ascribe them to me. I helped Member Menezes write this motion, and we made sure that it was reviewed by our legal staff, and our legal staff said that it was an appropriate motion to bring to the board. You don't like that? Take it up with her. But what we did here was made sure that this was an independent review so that we wouldn't be having folks at this board opining on the subject. We wouldn't be having folks in the service opine on the subject. We'd be having an independent person come in with expertise in the area to do a review. That's the right and ethical thing to do. I don't think there's any problem with me speaking the truth. And if you don't like it, sorry. But the hate capital Canada comment didn't come from me. Like, I didn't make that up. If you need to look at the articles that were written in the Hamilton Spectator, written in the CBC, written in the Globe and Mail about this subject and many other publications, go ahead and look them up on your own time. What I'm trying to say to you is that's a fact. It's not coming from me. I'm not being negative, Member St. Jean. I'm just reporting the facts. And there are people. And if you need to do more work to reach out to groups in the community who are impacted by hate and are afraid for their lives, go ahead and do it. I'm from a community like that, so I talk to people like that on a regular basis, and maybe you don't. But I can tell you they exist and they're real.
I'm Member Menendez. I'm getting terribly close to calling the vote, but please.
I'd like to speak to this also, responding to Member St. Jean, and you know, I just want to clarify, the motion is moved by me. And so in terms of what underlying motives, you know, my voice as a racialized woman on this board, I think is important and should not be overshadowed by, you know, my white male ally who has seconded the motion. So I just want to clarify that, right? I think that I'm gonna also agree with what Member Kretsch has noted here, which is that, you know, these comments about hate in Hamilton, they're not reports we have published. They're not reports that we have authored. These are well reported in CBC, on the national news, in the Hamilton Spectator. I think as a member of this board, to only obtain your knowledge about the community with the people you directly interact on a personal basis who are part of your own sort of circle of social and at your social level and your social hierarchical status, and not actually engage with the wider dialogue about what's happening in Hamilton or reading about Hamilton news is concerning. So this is all publicly available knowledge that we're not, you know, we're not breaking the news here about hate crime statistics, and that when we talk about how the role of transparency, like this, the primary role of this board is not to be a cheerleader for the police. It is to, right, support our police services and applaud them for all of the amazing work that they're doing, but it's also fundamentally a governing body. Our role is governance, right? And so when we're saying that we must forego our role as governance in order to prioritize making sure that only positive views are expressed about policing on this board, I think is concerning. When we're talking about let's be transparent, and if that review finds that we are the leaders in Canada about addressing, you know, associations with hate symbols and hate groups, then that is a wonderful thing for us to celebrate. But for us to proclaim that ourselves without any kind of expertise and refuse to have any kind of investigation for fears of what it may say about us, I think may be concerning. So I don't see anything that is worrying about ordering an external review in terms of what those results could be, because those results could only be positive. They either give us a pathway for how we can do better, or they highlight us to all of Canada that we're already the best.
This, some of the discussion is starting to lose focus on the motion, I think. And unless anybody has anything else they'd like to add, I'd like to call the vote. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is defeated.
Can I ask for that vote to be recorded, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So just note those opposed and those in favor in the minutes. Thank you.
Yep. Can I get a motion for the board to move into closed session in accordance with section 44(1) and 2, the Community Safety and Policing Act, as the board will be considering personal matters about identifiable individuals